I'm Hi Mike Thompson. I bet you have been thinking about going off-grid with the power outages that have been caused by the storms lately, haven't you? Well, maybe you want a nice set of solar panels. Our HOA, of course, wouldn't allow that. The only space we have that faces south is the very front of our house. So I'll have to come up with something else if I'm going to put in solar panels on my property. I got a couple ideas about that, though. But if you want to design your own solar panel system, I have designed an Excel file for you that you can download from my website, mikesinventions.com/downloads, that will allow you to adjust all the parameters of your solar powered system and play with the different habits and every little bit of thing that you could possibly want to play with to design your system before you build or buy a single component. Well, I led several teams a while back about solar powered projects. And a guy actually recently asked me what I would recommend that he do for solar power. So I talked to him about, his habits and kind of what he wanted to run and things. And I rebuilt this sheet that I built a long time ago. And what this sheet does is it allows you to visually design your solar powered system. So I'm going to explain how all this works. It looks very difficult, but it's really not. I'm going to explain how it works and how you can use it to play with things and design your system before you buy a single part or build anything. So let's start up here. All these yellow cells are cells that you can play with as part of your design. Okay? These cells here, the green ones and the red ones, for day one, are your habits of when you're going to use your lights and your loads and whatever you're going to do. Right? The whole point of this is to have enough power on hand when you want it, right? And so that's going to be shown down here in this graph. This is the visual representation of your battery bank's charge level throughout an entire week. Each of these humps basically represents a day. And your habits are up here, and it says up here, they're automatically filled for days 2 through 7. So for our initial system design, you can just pretend like you're going to do the same thing every single day. If you're not going to, and you know that for sure, which we don't ever, but for the purposes of this design and spreadsheet tutorial, assume we are. And obviously go change your habits, expand these cells, and go change your habits over here in days 2 through 7 if you know you're going to do something different. But let's jump into this and show kind of how this works and what matters and what doesn't. Well, everything matters, or I wouldn't have put it on this sheet. 300 watts, right? You're looking at this 300-watt solar panel. It looks pretty good. So let's start there. You want to buy this 300-watt panel. Now, you're not going to get 300 watts out of your system. You're going to have losses in your lines. It could be cloudy. You're not going to be ideally pointed at the sun. The cells, of course, are not 100% efficient. There's all sorts of reasons here. So I figure on 50% is what you're going to get. And you should do that too. Now, of course, you can look up specs and things and maybe change this number a little bit and toy with it. But 50% is a great starting point for your initial design. You're going to want to probably run lights, right? I mean, that's probably the number one thing people run on solar power is lights. How many watts do they take? Put that right here. You're going to want to probably run something else too, or lots of something else's, but this sheet for this purposes is just built for one other thing. You can, of course, add additional things. Once if you know anything about Excel, you just add more, insert new lines here and rebuild your table out. But I've just got one extra thing here to kind of show you how that works, because the class that I taught in this case, they wanted to run lights and then other accessories off of their solar system. So I went ahead and added a second load. Now, of course, these weren't their loads and things, but for this example, they are for right now. This is the default setting that you guys will see when you first download this sheet. 100 amp hours is pretty typical for a 12-volt deep cycle battery. I say 12 volts because that's there. Maybe you have 6-volt batteries. Maybe you got some deep cycle golf cart batteries or something. So you obviously would want to change that, but whatever your battery capacity is, you put it there. How many batteries do you have? Put it there. Are they 12 volts or are they something else? If they're something else, change this number, please. And then what's the discharge limit or depth of discharge that the batteries can withstand? A battery cannot be drained down to 0 volts. It just can't. It has a certain amount of discharge that it can withstand before it suffers memory effect, and its overall life cycle is shortened substantially. So what is that number? That's a standard battery spec that you'll find when you go to buy deep cycle batteries. So place it here, except this is an inverse, okay? I just put 50%, but a lot of deep cycle batteries can go down to 80%, 75%, whatever. When you go to change this number, do the inverse. So if you've got a battery that's 80% depth of discharge, this needs to say 20. And what that does is drive this orange line on the graph down here. And I'll explain why that's important in a minute. I'll just explain it now. Don't ever let this blue line go below this orange line. So these white cells here are calculated for you. Don't mess with that. But here's an interesting thing. This also needs to say yes, not no. Because when batteries are spec'd out with their amp hour rating, they're spec'd on a 20-hour discharge. I have no idea why, but that's what they are. And so what that tells you is if you expect to get 100 amp hours out of this battery, the most you can pull from it is 5 amps, right? Because 20 hours at 5 amps will give you 100 amp. 100 divided by 5 is 20, 100 divided by 20 is 5. Our system here, due to our habits, pulls a maximum of 6 amps in these areas right here. And so we are over this, and so we're not going to be able to get 100 amp hours out of this battery. It's like gas in your car. If you drive faster, you burn more fuel, and so your tank isn't going to last as long. Well, it's kind of the same thing here. A 100 amp hour battery might only behave like an 80 amp hour battery if you discharge it more than it's designed to. Or discharge it faster than it's designed to, not more. Okay, so that's how that goes. So we need this to say yes, and then this graph here, this is the most important part because this is the visual display of how your system behaves over a week. There's 3 things to note here on this entire thing. 3 things that matter. 1, this blue line must come back to 100% every day for at least an instant. A little, more than an instant ideally, but this must return to 100% every day or every other day, however your habits depend. But if it doesn't, we'll show what happens. Also, this blue line cannot drop below this orange line because of the depth of discharge limit. Let's put that back here at 50 for the default. And you can see here, based on our current habits, this system it's okay. I mean, it's close down here at the bottom. We're at full charge for several hours a day, so we're okay. So here's our habits and environmental factors. You can change these as well. Just play with day 1. The green cells and the red cells on day 1 is really all you need to do because the day 2 through 7 will autofill based on your day 1 habits. And that'll give you this nice graph here. Now, if you know you're going to do something different or you just want to play around, go expand these cells and change them. But we're going to leave them all the same for now and just play with day 1 and see how this system behaves. So, you want to design your system for worst case scenario, and you want to design it very conservatively. Well, the guy that I built this for recently lives in Omaha, and so I designed it for an Omaha winter. So the sun's not coming up really until 8, 9 a.m. And when it does finally come up, it's so low in the sky off to the left because your cells are pointing to the south, right? If you're in the northern hemisphere, and if they're not tracking the sun, point your cells south and tilt them accordingly based on your latitude. So until about 10 a.m., you're not going to get full power because the sun's not overhead enough. So you may get half power at those times. Now, whatever cells you buy might actually have some stats that say power versus sun angle. So you can change these 0.5s if you need to. Now, of course, in the summer, these 0.5s will move over to here because you're going to be getting more power there. But we want our system designed for worst case scenario. And then from 10 to 3 in the afternoon, the sun's overhead enough to get full power. It starts to set here, and then it's gone by 6 o'clock. You're going to want to run some lights, right? So let's say you get up at 6, you're up from 6 to 7, you run your lights that are 60 watts. This is just a yes or no on these lines. 1 is yes, you're running it. 0 is no, you're not running it. Then you leave, you go to work or something, and you don't get back here till 4 o'clock. You run them for an hour, you leave again at 5, the lights are off. You turn them back on until 11 p.m. Okay? Then whatever else you're running, maybe you're charging your phone, charging a laptop, who knows what. You've got this here, you're charging it, you stop, you use your load again, you stop using your load, use your load, whatever. Play around with the red cells on your habits. Your green cells really aren't going to change once you set them, right? Because you live in a certain spot, and your winter is going to be probably not a lot different than this. You're probably not going to move numbers more than 1 or 2 cells. Let's move this. Maybe there's a 0.5 there, and maybe where you are, that's a 1 there. You saw the graph shifted a little bit when we did that, but once you set the green cells, they're going to stay. Your habits are down here in red. Green is charge, red is discharge. And so remember our rules. We need this over here to hit 100 every day. We need this to stay above the orange line. And this needs to say yes. So what can we do about this system? Well, we can play with any of these yellow things here, and we can play with our habits. So let's start doing that. We need this to say yes. So you see right here, we're discharging 6 amps during these hours, and our max is 6. We can only draw 5 to get the 100 amp hour rate, so we need to drop this down below 6 amps. Well, what can we do? Can we add power to our cells? No, that doesn't do anything. All that does is makes it charge faster, and it sits fully charged for longer. So can we increase the capacity of our battery? Yes, we can, because the math is based on the capacity of the battery. We could go back to a 100 amp hour battery, of course, and we could get 2 of them. But then we've got all this reserve here. I mean, you bought a battery to discharge it, right? Not to sit fully charged all the time. What this tells me is you've spent too much on your batteries, and it's over-engineered. But, shoot, now we've got, let's figure on maybe we're going to get 2 batteries, because you got permission to get 2 batteries. Well, now we can run our lights a little, we can get more lights. We can maybe run them longer. Let's try that. Let's start, well, I'm going to get up at 5 and I'm going to work out. So I'm going to run my lights there. Maybe I want to run them at 11 in the afternoon for some reason. I'm going to run something. Let's say when I get home, actually I'm going to run these loads here. Let's run them there. But you know what? We've still got some reserve power. So I'm going to run a 100 watt thing. Let's do that. You can see we start to discharge a little bit more. Well, what can we get away with? Let's run it. Oh, sorry. That's not what I meant to hit. I wanted to change my load. We've still got excess capacity. Let's keep drawing that down. Okay. Well, I'm still coming back to 100, but you know what? Those 500 watt cells are a little bit expensive. Can I get away with the 300 watt cells I had before? Nope, I can't. Because look, we're good on the first rule here on day 1, but then we never again come back to 100% with our given habits and system design. And then we drop below the depth of discharge on day 5, and we never come back. So this is really important, this next point. This is something my students had a very similar scenario when they designed their initial system. And so what they wanted to do was add batteries, right? Well, let's add batteries. Instead of 2, let's have 4 batteries. Nope, you can't do that either. Because now you're still in a downtrend, see that? And your batteries are just dying a slower death. No amount of batteries is going to solve this problem. The only way you can solve this problem is with a habit change or a cell change. Let's change this back to 2 batteries. That's a reasonable amount to buy for a very simple starter system. So we got to change either our habits or we got to change our wattage. Well, if we didn't want to change our habits, because gosh, we're creatures of habit and we don't want to change, well, we're going to have to change our cells then. There's really no other way about it. I mean, we could certainly change the load, I guess. We could use maybe slightly more efficient lights, 60 amp. Oh, look at that. Well, if we go to 60 watt lights instead of 72 watt lights, we do come back to 100% each day. Even though it's only for an hour, that's cutting it close. Because man, what if it rains or something? You know, it's not going to charge, and we're never going to get our system back. So, and darn it, I want bright lights. I want 72 watts. I want an entire 5 meter or 3 meter LED strip all the time, right through my center of my ceiling, running all the time. So we're going to stuck with 72 watts. So we can shift some habits, I suppose, right? Maybe this thing that we want to charge, maybe we don't charge our phone when we're also awake, right? What if we do this? What if we change that? We move that over there. Okay. Well, that shifted the graph there. Let's not do that right there. So there, we're back. We stay above our depth of discharge with these new habits here, but so we're still doing what we're doing, but we've shifted some stuff. Let's run this thing here at midnight. Okay, so we've shifted that, but we're down here. But you can see how this is starting to play out. So really, the only thing we can do for this system is we can up our wattage. 350, 360. We get a little bit, but you see every little change we make changes the shape of this graph. We're still here. We're still screwed on this system though here because we don't have enough capacity to draw down these 16 amps right here. And is there any other place that's 16 amps? No, right here. Right here at 4 o'clock. We got a lot going on. So the only thing we can do that is we can, buy bigger batteries. Maybe we get 120 amp hour batteries. Nope, that's not enough. So here we got to buy another battery. Let's add 3 batteries. Okay, now we're safe, We've got our max draw rate is within our 20 amp hour rate. This is yes. We're at 100% for a bit. We're above our discharge limit. So you can see you got absolute freedom to change any of these things and see how your system is going to behave before you buy a single component. And this is really, really useful to illustrate how things are going to play out for you. But now you understand how to use this sheet and what you can do to make your system perform and behave like you want it to get the power when you need it, where you need it. Well, I hope that helps you out, and now you can go have fun playing with this Excel file. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Mike Thompson, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.